Hunger. A feeling of discomfort or weakness caused by lack of food coupled with the desire to eat. Jasmine. Is he going to cut your hair? No, baby. He's going to massage my scalp. You want to try? Yes, please. I chuckled, seeing her bright eyes widen as soon as I asked her. I'll be gentle with her, the masseuse assured me. After the movie, we'd gone to Domino's for lunch. Then I'd decided a visit to a spa was in order. Relax, baby. He's going to give you a scalp massage. If you don't like it, let me know, I said, and she nodded. Mick and Sherry were sitting on the sofa behind us. Iris had called a while ago, asking what we were doing. I was sure she'd called Mick and Sherry a bunch of times, too. Major trust issues. I tried to relax and thought about Thea's father. There was a dangerous and powerful aura around him that scared me. There was something about his blue eyes that had darkened when I'd said what I thought about how Thea lived. I was sure those words had hit his ego. The reason why I was lingering here at a day spa was because I didn't want to face him. I wanted him to be gone before we reached the mansion. Iris had mentioned that he wouldn't be staying at the mansion. He must have been there briefly to check on Thea. If he was there to see Thea, why would he have allowed us to go out? Was he going to stay in the mansion after all? Oh, God, I don't want him to stay there. After an hour in the spa, I got a call from Iris, reminding me that it was time to return. Already planning our next outing, I decided we would go shopping for Thea's room next time. The main thing on my agenda was to make her room the way she wanted it. As we left the spa, I held Thea's hand in a gentle grip while she clasped mine tightly, as if she were afraid I was going to leave her. I smiled at her, hoping to give her a sense of security. Mick drove, with Sherry in the passenger seat. In the back seat, Thea laid her head on my shoulder and I let her sleep. She must have been tired from her first outing in who knows how long. By the time we reached the mansion, it was 6, and I was sure Thea's father had left. With a light heart, I helped a sleeping Thea inside, even though Mick offered to carry her. The whole place was silent as usual, and I was about to turn toward the hallway to Thea's room when I heard someone say, "Wait!" My eyes widened when I heard the deep voice behind me, and I stopped in my tracks. Thea's father came to stand in front of me. My eyes took in his clothes. He was wearing a suit. "I'll take her," he whispered, stepping a little bit closer to pick Thea up so he could carry her the rest of the way. He was so tall compared to me. His fingers brushed mine a little when he pulled Thea into his arms. As if that weren't awkward enough, a still very sleepy Thea was holding my tea in a tight grip, which made me bump into him as he pulled her gently into his arms. Our eyes met, and I gulped. I removed my tea from Thea's tight grip and tried hard not to show my shaking hands. My heartbeat became very fast. He carried her to her room, with me following behind. He laid her on her bed and turned toward me. "Wake her up after an hour. She'll need to eat something." I nodded my head as his eyes stayed on me. "Words," he said, narrowing his eyes. "Okay, Mr. Jefferson, I will wake her up when dinner is ready." I was proud of myself for not stammering. We stayed rooted, each of us rooted to the spot, gazing at each other. I could hear my heartbeat as his eyes roamed over me, inspecting me. "I'll just go now and start dinner for Thea before she wakes up." Without waiting for a reply, I stepped out of the room, trying to control my heartbeat. I walked to my room to use the bathroom. I took off my shoes and jacket and threw my hair up into a bun before heading to the kitchen. Before they'd left, the housekeepers had cleaned thoroughly and made sure that everything was in its place. I washed my hands, humming "Let It Go." Now that I'd seen Frozen, that song was going to be stuck in my head forever. I pulled chicken out of the freezer and took some vegetables out of the crisper. I rinsed and chopped the veggies while soaking the rice. I wanted it to be perfectly cooked. Iris strode into the kitchen, all business as usual. "Miss Gibson, Mr. Jefferson will be staying here for a week. Make sure you don't get in his way. He won't tolerate any trouble or disturbance," she informed me. "Why doesn't he go back to where he usually stays?" I blurted out. I groaned as the words flew out of my mouth. "Where's your filter, Jasmine? If I were in your place, I would be very careful of my words. For your information, this mansion belongs to Mr. Jefferson. I gave her a tight smile, not quite trusting myself to speak. She left and I continued my work. By the time Thea's dinner was ready, she walked in with her doll. "I'm hungry," she said, and I chuckled. I had her sit in the dining room, and I placed her plate of food on the table. I sat beside her, keeping her company as she ate. "Is Papa home?" Thea asked, and right on cue, he walked in. He'd removed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt. The first 2 buttons at the collar were open. He looked hot. "Yes," he answered, looking at me the whole time. I'd prepared extra food when Iris mentioned that Thea's dad would be staying, and I went to get him a plate. "Where's your plate?" he asked as I served the food. "I'm not hungry." "Bring another plate." I looked at him. He narrowed his eyes when I stood there, not moving. So, as asked, I went over and brought another plate. "Sit." I frowned as I didn't particularly like his tone. No one ordered me to do things. Still, I sat down and he ladled food onto my plate and gently pushed it toward me. "Eat." Thea was watching both of us with curiosity. "Mr. Jefferson, I'll eat when I feel hungry. Right now, I'm not really hungry," I said, looking at his face. I tried hard not to tremble as he looked at me sternly. "Miss Gibson, half the world doesn't have enough to eat. When you have food on your plate, respect it and eat. I won't repeat myself." He waited for me to eat, and Thea looked back and forth between us. I knew she was afraid of talking in front of her dad. Frowning a little, I started eating the food I'd made. I was a good cook. I had a talent for it, and I had worked hard to make the most of it. "Can I have some rice?" Thea asked. "Of course," I said. My eyes wandered to Thea's father, who ate his food in silence. Usually, Thea and I talked while we ate. "Mr. Jefferson, would you like some rice?" I asked cautiously. He stopped eating and looked at me. This somehow turned into a staring contest, during which I started feeling a bit nervous under his gaze. He finally nodded, and with relief, I spooned rice onto his plate before setting the bowl down and taking my seat. I couldn't imagine why Thea's father decided to have dinner with us. I stared down at my plate while questions arose in my mind. What could be the reason for his sudden decision to stay the week and join us for dinner? I blinked and looked up to see Mr. Jefferson staring at me with an intense look in his eyes. I looked away, too scared to meet his gaze. I bit my lower lip, not even able to finish my food under his scrutiny. I was nervous, wondering what he was thinking as he watched me. It made me uncomfortable. He was Thea's father, and I knew nothing about the man. But it also made me excited to know he was watching me, that his eyes were on me. I'd gotten his attention, and now he had mine.